Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to the Anchor team. I missed you all last week, and I'm glad to see you all here again today. So here I am. This is my, co-host, co-pilot.
Sure.
What else is there? There's got to be a co-chef. There we go, co-chef. So you're the co-chef this week.
Mr. Hitchborn, good to have you back, sir.
It's good to be back. I am vacationed and tired, as is appropriate of all men going on vacation. You come home tired. So why don't we go ahead and begin the evening with our prayer as we usually do. In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum. Benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus.
Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et hora mortis nostri. Amen.
Our Lady of Victory.
Pray for us.
In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. All right. So just a couple of updates before we launch into tonight's exciting episode of News and Updates and News and Analysis. I want to let you know a little bit about what's going on here at the Lepanto Institute. Everything that if I have seemed tired or kind of, a little scattered lately, it's because everything that I've been doing for the last 4 months has been leading to this month. So it's all coming down to this month. Let me give you a rundown of what's coming up. So on June 12th, I will be in Washington, D.C. participating in the Men's March, where I will be giving a brief presentation, a few words, as you will, on the importance of men in stepping up to fight against the current encroaching culture of darkness, culture of death. Excuse me.
I'll be there.
Jim will be there too. So excited to see you again. Then June 16th. So 4 days later, I will be going up to Newark, New Jersey, where we will be sponsoring a big rosary rally and protest against that satanic radio station, WSOU. And I am happy to announce that Father Altman has agreed to come out, and he will be leading us in our rosary protest there. So we are going to have Father Altman with us at the satanic radio station, calling for Cardinal Tobin to shut that station down once and for all. Then, just a week later, June 21st through the 24th, I will be in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which means I'm not going to be around for the Anchor team. I think I'll be traveling at that time. But June 21st through the 24th, I'll be in Minneapolis for the AUSCP Annual Assembly. The AUSCP, as you will probably remember, is the Association of United States Catholic Priests, which is a heretical organization. They are just awful, awful, awful. And I am happy to announce that Father Altman will be joining me there in Minneapolis, Minnesota, to lead us in this rosary protest and rally. And then afterwards, we've secured a hotel conference room where I will be giving about a 45-minute presentation about the danger that the AUSCP poses to the faith in America and why we need to step up and fight against it. Followed by that, from June 24th through the 26th, we will be having the Great Apostasy Conference. Mike Stasiowski asks, what is Father Altman's status? We will actually be getting into that in tonight's program, so hang tight. But the Great Apostasy Conference, as you know, is going to be taking place from June 24th through the 26th. And once again, Father Altman is our keynote for that particular conference. So it's going to be a great program. For the next couple of weeks, I am going to be working like a madman, trying to pin down every peg and secure every line so that the whole tent is ready to go for this particular conference. It's going to be a madhouse, but it's going to be awesome. You guys are going to enjoy it. If you haven't already signed up for it, just go to apostasyconference.com and be sure to register so that you can get the email update as to where to go at the appropriate time so that everything is ready and set. So, with all of that said, June is an incredibly busy month for me. I am going to be running around wishing that, somebody would just go ahead and put me out of my misery and cut my head off and martyr me so that I can be done with this world. But it's not going to happen. Which means you're stuck with me for a little while longer. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and jump in with our program. And Jim's going to start us off with some very interesting news that broke today about Cardinal Reinhard Marx. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, and welcome back, Hitch. Always good to be here. So today, Cardinal Reinhard Marx unexpectedly and suddenly stepped down. And he, and here, I'm going to quote from his comment, which, by the way, I thought was pretty excellent, very humble. But I feel that through remaining silent, neglecting to act, and over-focusing on the reputation of the church, I have made myself personally guilty and responsible. Now, some context. This is a tremendous loss. Well, first, Hitch and I talked. I go, I don't get this, by the way, but we'll get to that towards the end. This is a tremendous loss for the synodal path. We can only surmise that, what happened here was German bishops have been flexing their muscles lately. Rome and Francis flexed back, as expressed in the Pope's post-synodal exhortation of the Amazon Synod. The reforms that they have aggressively pushed were not fulfilled. The German bishops were most influential with the push for the church to follow the synodal path, and the Amazon Synod was clearly representative of all of their efforts. The synod was closely linked to Cardinal Marx and the German church. The bishops have heavily funded the preparations for the entire Amazon Synod, and their intent was clear. They were hoping to change the church in a fundamental manner. And now you have to know a couple things. Now, 2/3 of the bishops are what one would call very progressive. They've pushed for married priests, female deacons, and a few weeks ago, over 100 churches in Germany offered blessings to gay couples in defiance of church teaching. And this is actually one of those.
And Marx was leading the charge for that.
And he was leading the charge for that. And actually, this papal document can clearly be seen as a direct failure of Marx and his own aggressive agenda. So as Hitch and I were discussing today, this can be seen as kind of a rebuff, and it's making it harder for him to remain. And just to give you some context on Marx, the German cardinal was a leading figure behind the two synods of bishops on marriage and the family of 2014 and 15 in Rome. Now, this is important because it led to the post-synodal exhortation Amoris Laetitia of April 2016, which opened the door to exceptions of the rule that basically unrepentant adulterers may not receive Holy Communion. And under Marx's leadership, the German bishops came out in 2017 with very liberal pastoral guides, which essentially gave each couple in court in irregular situation the permission to make, after a period of discernment with a pastoral counselor, not necessarily a priest, a decision of conscience, whether or not they intend to receive Holy Communion. Now, also under Marx's rule that the Germans pushed for communion for Protestant spouses of Catholics. In June of 2018, the German bishops published their guidelines, which allowed some Protestant spouses of Catholics to receive Holy Communion. And this in spite of, admonitions from Rome, direct criticism from many churches. He has stated in the past that homosexual relationships are to be unconditionally accepted and their sexual activities should not be morally disqualified. A couple of other points, and then I'm going to just kind of wrap this into what I think is a conclusion, then Hitch and I will talk about this a little bit. In 2016, he removed his pectoral cross when visiting the Jewish Wailing Wall. Also, as the Muslim dome, the rock in the Temple of Mount Jerusalem. He praised Karl Marx and said that without him, there would not be any Catholic social doctrine, which, by the way, is absolutely, in a mountain and universe of stupidity. That one is that. I'm not even going to comment on it. It's so dumb.
I'm not being flippant here, but I do honestly wonder if there is some sort of relationship that he has, a familial relationship.
Right. I was wondering. I was wondering that too when I was reading that. He was also the guy that closed down many monasteries against the will of the nuns there. Now, Now here's, and Hitch, I'll give you my spin on this and then you jump in. But although his resignation and statement appeared to show some humility and accountability, I was really shocked by that. Cardinal Marx fundamentally has been a very disloyal successor to the apostles. His actions and rhetoric for years have demonstrated or supported publicly grave Eucharistic sacrilege. He's allowed manifest adulterers, homosexuals, and non-Catholics to receive communion. He's come out really clear on this. He has continually usurped and challenged Rome's authority by flagrantly ignoring church law and proceeding in any manner he and other recalcitrant bishops saw fit. And one can only speculate as to why. And again, you and I spoke this afternoon. I said, look, let me run this by you. And I thought you had you gave us a pretty good conjecture on this. If you don't mind, Hitch, between the Italian bishops and the Germans.
Yeah, sure. So as we were talking, one of the things that came up is that, let's take a look at the finances real quick. There's been a constant infighting and certain leaked financial statements, right?
Right.
I mean, what happened with the Peters Pence? Suddenly we get all these leaked documents saying, oh, you know what? Turns out that Peters Pence has been buying some pretty interesting property in very posh neighborhoods in London.
Right.
Peters Pence has also been sponsoring Rocket Man, that
Elton John
horrible gay porn movie that featured Elton John. So, and it's a weird leak, right? And what happens is it all gives kickback to Cardinal Parolin. And Cardinal Parolin starts to take a massive hit on his influence in the Vatican. Well, then you start to see Cardinal Parolin very subtly saying things against the church in Germany. And as Cardinal Marx is just jamming his heel on the accelerator, pushing the German church into a massive brick wall.
Right.
Suddenly he jams on the brakes.
Yeah.
Suddenly he's humble and submissive. That doesn't make sense. I want to go back to the first thing that you quoted him on. He said,
yeah,
I feel that through remaining silent. Remaining silent? Has he been silent about anything?
Yes, he has been silent about anything negative that had to do with putting the church in
a negative light. He claims.
Yeah. It claimed it's like financial exposure.
Yeah, that's what he says. But the fact of the matter is, it says, I feel that as though remaining silent, neglecting to act, and over focusing on the reputation of the church. Really over focusing on the reputation of the church by blessing gay unions?
Right.
It makes no sense. The man has never focused on the reputation of the church. He's actually been dogging the church, saying the church has been, mean towards gays, and it's been uninclusive, and it's been exclusive, and it's been, all this stuff. And now he's going to say that he's been silent on these matters and that he's over focused on the reputation of the church. And then he says,
wasn't he referring to the sexual scandals that he was?
He was referring to the sexual scandals. Yes. But
right.
The words here are stupid.
Yes,
They're just stupid. Over focusing on the reputation of the church. I have made myself personally guilty and responsible. No, your eminence. You were personally guilty and responsible for destroying the reputation of the church, for denigrating the teachings of the church, for tossing all of the things that the church actually professes and believes under the bus so that you can push some sort of homosexual agenda. No, don't give me this nonsense about over focusing on the reputation. That's garbage. That's absolute garbage.
Why the I was going to say, there's another thing to talk about here too, is my take on this. I found it really, really odd because in Germany, if you are born and you register your religion, you automatically out of your income tax, 8 to 9% goes to that organized religion. These guys have enormous power. 16 last year was 17 billion, and the year before was a fraction less than that. I mean, these guys are sitting high on the hog. And so So what's your overall take on this? I mean, why this ridiculous statement? You just think that, you know, they were gunning for him. It was just a matter of time, or B, they just got hammered. What do you think happened?
Well, so if you read between the lines, it reads very much like a blackmail letter. Like
Right.
he got caught doing something. There's video somewhere,
right.
And the Italians they don't call it a Byzantine chess match for nothing.
No.
Okay. The Italians know subterfuge very, very well. They learned it from the Byzantines, and the mob has its origins down in the southern tip of Italy. So they know how to play the game, and they know how to twist the knife. The Germans know how to drive Panzer tanks through a line, but they don't know how to do diplomacy.
Just ask Cardinal Pell.
Exactly. So
Seriously.
Cardinal Parolin, I think, got some dirt on Cardinal Marx, and Cardinal Marx, realizing that canon law was recently changed on a few things, found that he may actually be excluded from the party altogether, and has decided to remove himself from the situation. Now he's only gracefully as gracefully as a fat ballerina can traipse off the stage.
How will he live? Where will he go?
Oh, well, I mean, for crying out loud, he was the head of a diocese that was worth billions.
Oh, you mean they're not going to treat him like Altman or Father Parker? No.
Yeah.
That doesn't. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I digress.
so.
No.
Yeah, no, but you're right. The thing about Cardinal Marx is that at 67 years of age, the mandatory retirement age is 75.
Right.
It makes zero sense for him to just suddenly step down without something pushing him out of his position. And that something has to be sufficiently strong to be worse than remaining in his position and suffering the consequences. So whatever it is, and it's only speculation on our part to wonder what it is, but I can tell you his letter to the Pope is it's a smokescreen. It makes zero sense. It didn't just come out of the goodwill of his heart. Something happened. As a friend of mine once told me, bishops only understand one stimulus. The pain, they understand pain and the absence of pain. And that's it. So Cardinal Marx was feeling pain in one area and realized that if he didn't want to feel pain, he had to go to another area. And that's what precipitated this decision.
Excellent analysis. It was fascinating when it first came up, and I was like, what'd this guy do? So
exactly.
To sum it up, they have pictures. Sorry, that was conjecture.
It's conjecture.
But, right.
Let's just say it's probably an educated guess.
I would say that your educated guess is probably pretty close, but we shall see. We shall stay tuned.
One thing that I want to move on to, I want to talk a little bit about the changes in canon law that recently came up. Now, what's interesting, and I'm going to read you something that I think you all will find very interesting. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Here we go. Nope, that's not the article. All right, here we go. So I wrote an article for Lepanto a couple of weeks ago, and you all have probably seen it. But the article, the headline is Heretical Association of Catholic Priests Supports LGBT Adoption Legislation. Oh, that's not the article I wanted. Hold on. Let me go back. Sorry. Let me get a do-over here. The article that I want. Oh, now I can't find it. Give me just a moment. Sorry. Okay. Here it is. Bishop-supported priest association continues push for women's ordination. That's the headline. In the article, the article is about the AUSCP and how they're pushing for the ordination of women deacons as a stepping stone to getting women ordained as priests. Now, one of the things that we pointed out in the article was that in the AUSCP's newsletter, they put out a call to action. They said, hey, there's this event called Discerning Deacons. Help us launch and spread the good news about the active discernment of our church about women in diaconal ministry. And then it gives a schedule. And one of the aspects of the schedule that we put out was this one. Okay, so Monday, April 26th, join a monthly Zoom event with Phyllis Zagano, PhD, the world's foremost scholar of women deacons on the topic of vocation and the movement of women deacons. Now, I've actually spoken with Phyllis Zagano on the phone. She was put in charge of the Pope's Commission for investigating whether women can ever be ordained as deacons and, you know, all that nonsense. And we all realized a couple of years ago that was going nowhere. The commission failed to produce any kind of real evidence that women could be ordained as deaconesses. So anyway, Phyllis Zagano, let me move my article over here. Phyllis Zagano wrote an article in 2003, and I quoted her in this article. I said, and this is what she said: if women were sacramentally ordained deacons and the diaconate shares in the sacerdotal priesthood, as the commission argues, then women have already shared in the sacerdotal priesthood. I'm not arguing for women priests, only pointing out that the argument seems to do so. And then I went on and talked about a few other things. Well, Dr. Zagano actually went to our article and she left this comment. She said, please stop citing my work out of context. I pointed out the false reasoning that connects the diaconate to the priesthood. And if you refuse to recognize the nuances of my writing, or she said, and you refuse to recognize, I have tried to explain this to you, but you refuse to accept the reality that neither I nor my work is designed to support any argument for women priests. Now, why would she be saying this? Because she's walking a razor-thin line. She knows exactly where her arguments lead, and she knows exactly how her arguments are being used, especially by those on the left who are trying to elevate women to the role of deaconess. So I responded, I said, you fail to realize that if your work is being taken out of context, it is not we who are doing it, but those who support your cause to have women, quote, ordained to the diaconate. If you cannot see that you and your cause are being used as a means to the end of women in the priesthood, it is not our fault. And then I went in and I quoted a few things that she had said and gave an argument that absolutely destroys her position on women being ordained to the diaconate. Now, why do I bring this up? Because just recently, there were several very interesting changes to the Code of Canon Law. And one of the things that came up was the ordination of women. So let me go to, here we go. One of the changes, and I'm going to go into several changes that were made here, some of them pretty good and some of them not so good. The first is the clarification of canon law, or some of these clarifications for canon law provide for sealing loopholes to punish predator priests. Punishment for priests watching or in possession of child porn, and also significant is an attempt to ordain women that has been unambiguously defined as a crime. Listen to this. Canon Law 1379, paragraph 3 says this: both a person who attempts to confer a sacred order on a woman and the woman who attempts to receive the sacred order incur a late sententiae excommunication reserved to the Apostolic See. A cleric meaning the bishop, moreover, may be punished by dismissal from the clerical state. So anyone who attempts to ordain a woman in a sacred order is automatically excommunicated. That's what late sententiae excommunication means. It's automatic. Here's what's interesting. This doesn't say ordination to the priesthood. This says who attempts to confer a sacred order on a woman. This is important to note because the diaconate specifically identified in the rite of ordination as one of the progressions in holy orders is not permissible for women. That's what this means. This actually specifically excludes women from ordination to the diaconate. So any attempt to do so will incur automatic excommunication. Now, it would be nice if it identified the stages of ordination: diaconate, priesthood, bishop. It doesn't identify those stages. However, it is interesting that it says attempts to confer a sacred order on a woman, because that necessarily would include the diaconate. Now, some of the other changes. Canon 1373. This is actually a rather alarming change. Canon 1373 says this: a person who publicly incites hatred or animosity against the apostolic see or the ordinary because of some act of ecclesiastical office or duty, or who provokes disobedience against them, is to be punished by interdict or other just penalties. Let's break this down. A person who publicly, so here we're talking about a public act. This isn't just us talking one-to-one or muttering in a dark hallway, but someone who on a public forum like Facebook, Twitter,
YouTube,
website, YouTube, so in a public way, incites hatred or animosity. Now, hatred we can understand. Hatred has a particular meaning.
Sure.
Animosity does not. Animosity can mean any number of things.
Like divisive?
Right? Yes, exactly. Exactly. So you can be accused of being divisive. Now, animosity, it's animosity against the apostolic see or the ordinary. So in other words, a sense of aggression. But again, what do we mean by a sense of aggression? If the bishop is unjustly punishing his entire diocese and saying, you know what, I'm not going to let anybody get baptized, I'm not going to let anybody receive extreme unction, and you're not going to perform any funerals because I said so, which happened during the whole Cerveza crisis of last year.
During the flu season.
Yes. So when a bishop decides that he's going to withhold the administration of the sacraments unjustly, we, the laity, who are the recipients of such unjust action, which thereby places souls in eternal peril, we, the laity, would be justified in having a sense of anger at the local ordinary.
Sure.
So is animosity defined by inciting riotous and rebellious behavior to say that this particular bishop should not be bishop and therefore let's throw him out? Or does animosity mean that people are rightly angered and justified in their anger because the bishop is doing something unjust to them? It's not clear. So this is a problem. Already, this is a problem. The ambiguity of the language, weaponized ambiguity, is a problem. But then it goes on, because of some act of ecclesial office or duty. Now, an act of ecclesial office can be defined by any number of things that a bishop does. It could be his mere administration of funds. It could be his decisions on how the sacraments are to be administered and to whom.
Or who should speak at a conference.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is amazing. This is amazing language.
So yes, it's extremely broad in its scope, and I think very deliberately so. And then it says, or who provokes disobedience against them. Now, what is disobedience? How are we defining disobedience? Is disobedience to a bishop who says that to his priest, you are not to speak out against pro-abortion politicians? That's an unjust rule. That's an unjust command.
Correct.
So if a priest disobeys a bishop who gives an unjust command, because Thomas says an unjust command is no command at all, or an unjust law is no law at all, in the same respect, a bishop who gives an unjust command, the priest is not obligated to follow that command. Furthermore, if the laity encourage the priest, so provokes disobedience, encourage the priest to fail to obey an unjust command, would that thereby be understood to be provoking disobedience against the local ordinary? Or let's say Pope Francis comes out with a decree that, well, the divorced and remarried can now receive communion. Are those who rail against that now provoking disobedience? Or suppose Pope Francis says that a statue resembling Mother Earth is to be venerated by indigenous peoples, and people stand up and say, this is horrible, this is blasphemy, and this is idolatry. Are we now provoking disobedience against the Holy See, the Apostolic See? So you see, the language here is incredibly ambiguous, and it's ambiguous for a reason.
Right.
I want to move on to the next one.
Hey, can I real quick?
Go ahead.
I want to call that, and quite honestly, shut up and obey. That's
well, yeah.
And this is the precursor to the Marxist tendencies we see coming out of Rome. These guys aren't mad at what's going on; they're mad at people who are pointing it out.
Right. No,
I mean,
right.
But go ahead, continue. Shut up and obey. Okay.
That's exactly it. Shut up and obey. Whoop, there we go. So the next canon, Canon 1379. The following incur a late sententiae interdict, or, if a cleric, also late sententiae suspension. And paragraph 4, with regard to this particular code, and again, this one is kind of interesting. This one's not so bad.
Yeah, right.
It's so the following, what I'm about to read you, incurs automatic interdict or suspension. Listen, a person who deliberately administers a sacrament to those who are prohibited from receiving it is to be punished with suspension, to which other penalties mentioned, and there mentioned several other canons, may be added. Now, when taken in response to, say, Canon 1337, which is the one that I was just going over, people who incite hatred and animosity against the Holy See and provoke disobedience, it can look very much like what they're saying, because that person is to be punished with an interdict, which means they're not allowed to receive the sacraments. So then you jump down to 1379 and it says, so anyone who thereby administers the sacraments to those who are prohibited, meaning those who are provoking hatred and disobedience against the Apostolic See and local ordinaries, then those who actually administer the sacraments to them are to be punished with suspension. Now, here's the unintended double effect that I think falls into this. because Canon 915 was untouched. Canon 915 states that those who are excommunicated under interdict or obstinately persistent in grave manifest sin are to be denied Holy Communion.
Right.
Which means pro-abortion politicians, politicians that have participated and promoted same-sex marriage, politicians that are advocating for contraception in a public manner, those individuals, according to Canon 915, are to be denied Holy Communion. So then you read 1379 again, and it says, a person who deliberately administers a sacrament to those who are prohibited from receiving it is to be punished with suspension. So now the Holy See finds itself in a situation where the double-edged sword that they designed to attack anybody who would incite a rebellious attitude to their rebellion is now slitting its own throat with its own words. Because now this particular code can be applied to Canon 915. And I would absolutely love for a bishop to utilize this with regard to priests who say, give blessings to same-sex unions, or to priests who and cardinals who give communion to President Joe Biden for, who should be actually excommunicated for heresy anyway. Because of the things that he has said in a very manifest way, promoting same-sex. He actually participated.
He performed the ceremony.
Yeah.
He performed the ceremony.
Twice.
Hitch, I'm listening to you and I'm going, okay, we'll do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But please continue. I'm like going, wow.
So it's just a very interesting situation. I don't know. It's a very strange and murky scenario for the bishops to find themselves in, because canon law now appears to be somewhat self-conflicting. And in many ways, it could be used to harm those of us on the side of right and good, and it could be used as a weapon, as my mother said, to hoist them on their own petard. So we'll see how it plays out, but there we are. One thing that I want to get into, why don't we go ahead and jump in with this one, Jim? I want to put up the video. Did you see the video that I sent you earlier? You didn't see it?
No, sorry. Didn't pick it up.
This is interesting. Let's play this video from the Vatican, and then we'll talk about it. Because and the great thing is, everybody, Jim's going to be seeing this for the first time, so you'll be getting his live reaction to this. This is going to be great. So let me add this to the stream and make it go. Let's see. Wait a minute. Can you hear it? Oh, you know what? I did that thing where I didn't have here, let me stop.
Oh, yeah, I did try to open it, and it did not open, so I have not seen this. I now know what you're referring to. I saw her picture and it didn't work. So, okay.
So let me try this again. I have to make sure that it says share audio also. I hate having to click that. That annoys me. Okay, here we go.
Restoration is ultimately
Can you hear anything?
a question of faith.
Okay.
Do we all believe that a better future is possible? I am extremely honored to now introduce a message by His Holiness Pope Francis.
I have the honor to read the message which the Holy Father addressed on 27th May last to Her Excellency Mrs. Inger Andersen, United Nations Environment Program Executive Director, and to His Excellency Mr. Ku Dongju, Food and Agriculture Organization Director General, for the launch of the United Nations Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. Your Excellencies, this decade invites us to make 10-year commitments aimed at caring for our common home by supporting and scaling up efforts to prevent, halt, and reverse the degradation of ecosystems worldwide, and raise awareness of the importance of successful ecosystem restoration. In the Bible, we read that the heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day, they pour forth speech. Night after night, they reveal knowledge. They have no speech, they use no words. No sound is heard from them. We are all part of this gift of creation. We are a part of nature, not separated from it. This is what the Bible tells us. The current environmental situation calls us to act now with urgency, to become ever more responsible stewards of creation, and to restore the nature that we have been damaging and exploiting for too long. Otherwise, we risk destroying the very basis on which we depend. We risk floods and hunger and severe consequences for ourselves and for the future generations. This is what many scientists tell us. We need to take care of each other and of the weakest among us. Continuing down this path of exploitation and destruction of humans and of nature is unjust and unwise. We have a responsibility to leave a habitable common home for our children and for future generations. However, we are warned that we have little time left. Scientists say the next 10 years, the span of this UN decade, to restore the ecosystem, which will mean the integral restoration of our relation with nature. The many warnings we are experiencing, among which we can see COVID-19 and global warming, are pushing us to take urgent action. Restoring the nature we have damaged means, in the first place, restoring ourselves. As we welcome the United Nations Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, let us be compassionate, creative, and courageous. May we take our proper place as a restoration generation.
Okay.
That's it?
That's it. That's it.
Wow. That was awful.
Well, not
Can
just
I-
awful. I found some of the language to be very interesting.
Oh, go, because my head's going to explode. I was like, did AOC write it? I got to say that. I mean, it was incredible. But
Oh, I know. It was basically the Green New Deal, isn't it?
Yeah, it was the Green New Deal and the Great Reset all rolled into one. But go ahead, Hitch. That was painful to listen to.
Yes.
Oh, my God. That was
so.
awful.
The very first words that were offered for this particular terrible, terrible video was that a better future is possible.
Right. Earthly.
Yeah. Well, do you know where that phrase comes from? Comes from the World Social Forum, which is the international communist agency that Caritas Internationalis just happens to be on the executive body of.
Oh my gosh.
Where they say their catchphrase is another world is possible. But she starts off this presentation with a better future is possible. And then you start looking through where other organizations are using that phrase.
Mm-hmm.
And it's being used all around the world. Davos,
yes.
The World Economic Forum. So all these international players are using the same phrase. A better future is possible. It's international Marxism, and they're all speaking from the same script.
Yes, yes.
And then
exactly.
You start listening to what Cardinal Parolin is saying there, and he, well, actually, it's Pope Francis. He's speaking on behalf of Pope Francis, which also begs the question, why didn't Pope Francis record this?
Good point.
I actually wonder why Pope Francis didn't just record his own message. He records all his other own messages. So I kind of wonder about what's really going on here. But you have Cardinal Parolin speaking on behalf of Pope Francis, and he starts talking about a 10-year plan. You know, the communists used to talk about a 5-year plan, but now they're talking about 10-year plans. And he talks about this 10-year plan in regards to a decade for the United Nations to put a halt to all the problems that are taking place in the world, so that we don't have, you know, so we can leave behind a pristine world to all the future generations. Well, a decade. What happens in a decade? Do you know what's in a decade? 10 years from now is 2030
UN program.
That's
2030.
right. That's
Bingo.
right. UN 2030. We're talking about the Sustainable Development Goals. That's what this whole video is all about.
Oh gosh, this
It's
is awful.
all the Sustainable Development Goals, which is that international communist plan
Yes. Hitch,
for
let me jump
population
in.
control. Yeah, go
You
ahead.
you say this all the time. What do they need the church for? Credibility.
That's right.
The phrase, the least among us. I'm listening
Mhm.
to this nonsense. Actually, my head still hurts. You know, that entire thing was constructed in everything you were saying. But continue. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I had to say that. They need the church for credibility. That's why they're courting
right.
them.
That's right. Well, let's remember what Pope Francis said to Ban Ki-moon in 2014. He met with Ban Ki-moon, who was the Secretary General of the United Nations at the time, and Jeffrey Sachs, who has been a regular fixture in the Vatican ever since.
Yes.
So he talks to Jeffrey Sachs and Ban Ki-moon in 2014. They tell him all about the Millennium Development Goals, which were winding down in 2015 at that time. And they talk about the cause of sustainable development and how they're going to be instituting these new sustainable development goals. And Pope Francis says that he is going to commit the Catholic Church to the implementation of the sustainable development goals. And he has not missed a beat ever since.
Nope.
Everything about that video is all a push for the sustainable development goals. It's a dog whistle. It's a dog whistle to the world elites to say, we're doing our part. And Parolin's probably going, so where's my dough?
Yep. We're on board.
Yeah.
Cut the check.
Yeah, exactly.
It was incredible. Every word was constructed to the things you were talking about. The Great Reset, the UN, Jeffrey Sachs,
Yep.
all of it. The entire thing was constructed. Not one word was said about it. First of all, the entire thing was offensive in the sense of pantheism in a way. You know, that
Right.
somehow we're going to conflate. He didn't mention Christ as usual.
No,
Yeah,
of course not.
I don't. Silly me.
Well, what does God have to do with anything?
What does
We're trying to
God-
save the world.
Oh,
God
boy.
only saved the world once, but you know, we're going to do it again.
Yeah. Oh man. It's and actually it's not a small point. This is why when we were talking before the show, you talk to your average Christian or Catholic, you ask him, hey, you know, what do you know about your faith? And he's like, well, I'm a good person. I work at the soup kitchen. They're conflated.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
Exactly.
it's very, very sad. Absolutely. That was a very sad video. Holy cow. Yeah, thanks. I didn't see it before. Couldn't open it.
Yeah, no, I was glad to get your reaction because
Good Lord.
sometimes seeing something for the first time, things come out fresh in your mind and you're able to say things that you might not remember to say later.
Right.
So I was glad that you got a chance to see it here. If we probably have time for one or two more stories. So I think that actually what I would like for you to do, Jim, why don't we jump down to the story about Father Altman? We said we were going to get into him. So I would like for you to go ahead and cover that story if you would.
Oh, yeah, sure. So Father Altman continues to get attacked by the hierarchy. And as you know, he's received sort of a national following during the Cerveza lockdown. And probably best known for his remark, you cannot be Catholic and a Democrat, period, end of story.
And he's right.
And he's right. And by the way, he's 100% correct.
You know, I just have to stop you right there.
Sure.
I am so sick and tired of hearing people on social media, and I get this a lot. I've been defending Father Altman for the last couple of months.
Yeah, I know.
And on Facebook especially, because that's primarily where I hang out. But from good Catholics have been coming on there and saying, oh, but you know, why is he getting into politics? I'm going, politics? Are you kidding me? The Nazi Party and the Communist Party were both condemned by the Vatican. Why don't we just go ahead and do the same thing to the Democrats? They're no different.
Great point.
They're no different.
That's right. I find that argument maddening. It represents the depth of a puddle. I mean, are you kidding me? Of course we're getting involved in politics.
Well, and once again,
They're
it shows
doing.
the problem of Americanism.
Yes, that's right.
You know,
That's
here
right.
in America, what do we say? Well, you know, you can't really mix politics and religion. You have to kind of keep them separate. Well, no,
No,
politics,
you're mandated. You're mandated to join them.
right?
You're absolutely, and you're right about Americanism. It's actually very, very true. And to your point, a couple of weeks ago about freedom of religion.
Right.
You know, I mean, right. Keep going. Sorry.
So the idea of politics is a public manifestation of a proper set of governance and laws.
Yes.
But unjust laws fall into the realm of morality.
Absolutely.
So if a governor says you're not allowed to have more than 2 children, well, you know what? A bishop, a priest, a deacon has every right and responsibility to stand up and say, this is wrong. This law is wrong. You must oppose it. You Catholic men must stand up and fight that.
That's right. That's
Okay?
right.
That's politics, but it's morality also. It's morality being used as a football in a political realm. What do you think the Crusades were?
Exactly.
It was politics too, but it was also about the church. It was about the protection of Christians in the Holy Land. It was about making
Good point.
sure that holy sites in the Holy Land were secured and not fallen into the enemy hands.
Yes.
So, you know, this idea that you have to segregate politics and religion is ridiculous. It's absurd.
It is absurd. It's annoying, and the only thing worse than that is the grating conflation of the conference in Connecticut and Thomas Jefferson's words with the Constitution. They constantly get that wrong. You cannot find the verbiage in the Constitution, separation of church and state.
Right.
You know, you just can't find it in the first place. All laws come from morality, right? Where does morality come from? God. Be quiet.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I can't listen to it. And it's very hard to make the argument because you have to be very, very patient, you know, because it's like, you know, these people don't think about this. Anyway, you want me to continue?
Yeah, I didn't mean to derail you. I just,
no.
That one point, I just thought we had to hammer that home.
Yeah, and I thought we did, and excellent. So Bishop Callahan of La Crosse reprimanded Father Altman for his message that had gone viral and warned of canonical penalties that the priest does not heed his, quote, fraternal correction. Now, this is what I find hilarious. His fraternal correction, which is meant to be done in private, like, Hitch, you pull me aside, tell me I shouldn't speak heresy on the anchor team. Privately, that's a fraternal correction, right? But Father Altman did this publicly. Excuse me, Bishop Callahan did this publicly. And I quote, Father Altman has become a social media phenomenon and is now a mainstream media story, said the bishop. The amount of calls and emails we're receiving at the diocesan offices show how divisive he is. How divisive he is, that's absolute nonsense. His parish has doubled, money's up, people are traveling 100 miles to go to mass with this guy. I was blown off the couch when I first heard the guy speak during COVID. You know, you're locked down, looking around going, I was like, who's this guy? Some guy in Wisconsin, right? So,
but let's speak to the word divisive there for a moment, because he is divisive in the sense of what Christ is doing by separating the sheep from the goats.
That's right.
You know, the wheat from the chaff.
That's why he came.
Exactly. And the truth itself, as he said, Father Altman said, the truth itself is divisive. And Christ himself said that I'm going to divide families, fathers from sons, mothers from daughters. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is going to be division within the church because the truth itself is dividing. It causes a dividing line. That itself is dividing the whole entire universe. Do you realize the whole entire universe was created by division?
Good point.
Separating the earth from the heavens, separating the waters from the lands, separating the light from the darkness. So right in the very beginning of everything, you have division.
Exactly.
What did it, do you know what it really was? It was the sign of the cross 3 times.
What do you mean?
Think about it. Dividing the heavens from the earth, dividing light from dark, dividing the waters from the earth.
Yeah.
You know, all of that, those divisions are the signs of the cross.
Division.
And it's a triple blessing of the universe. And so this idea that somehow creation and people and man and the church are not supposed to be divisive is completely false. But, to your point, Father Altman, he's not being divisive in this antagonistic sense where he's just going out and trying to, drive a wedge between husbands and wives. That would be like malignant divisiveness, right?
Yes.
No, all he's doing is drawing that line, that one little line that says, here's where truth is on this side, and on this side of the line is untruth. That's all he's doing.
Right.
He's not establishing the division. The division already exists. He's just acknowledging it.
Right. Isn't it? By the way, does this fall under Canon 1373? Am I I'm serious. I'm not being wise. I'm not being cute, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Which, once again, let me go back to the wording.
I think it was. I think that was it. Hold on.
A person who publicly incites hatred or animosity against the apostolic see or the ordinary because of some act of ecclesiastical office or duty, or who provokes disobedience against them, is to be punished with an interdict. So is Father Altman, shut up and obey. I don't know that what he's doing would fall under that, because he has been very careful with his words.
Yes.
But we do have to be careful about some of the things that we say by, maybe calling his bishop a heretic or that kind of thing, because then
public videos.
well, but we have to be careful with our words anyway.
I know, of course.
We shouldn't be lobbing unjust accusations against the bishop,
of course,
just because what he's doing is making us angry.
Oh, can I continue?
Yeah,
okay,
please.
Good.
Sorry, I keep interjecting.
No, not at all. No. So anyway, Callahan wrote this as I review Father Altman's latest video. When we approach issues that are contradictory to the faith and teaching of Jesus Christ and the Catholic Church, particularly on abortion and other life issues, here comes my favorite part. I added that quote: "We should invite dialogue and heartfelt conversation to the truth. Our approach must never seek to divide, isolate, or condemn." I'm sorry, really? They're killing kids, Your Eminence, or Excellency, in this case. Are you kidding me? It's the worst kind of gaslighting. Yeah, actually, I'm sorry. This is disgraceful. He is defending the deposit of faith, and then you're taking issue with his tone. And now you're saying, yeah, you're kind of implying something wrong with you. And then you want to send him off. Go ahead.
But look at his words again. Our approach must never seek to divide.
Yeah, of course they are.
Blink, blink.
Right.
Really?
Right. That's right. Thank you. Of course they're supposed to divide.
Our approach must never seek to isolate. Well, the truth is not only isolating, but people in their actions, people in their philosophies isolate themselves.
Correct.
All we're doing is pointing it out. Our approach must never seek to condemn. That's false.
Yes.
That's false. Because in the confessional,
right,
what is a priest's role but to be an actual judge?
That's right. And this is actually a form of charity. What Father Altman is doing is a form of charity. He loves people so much, he's trying to correct them. Now, this is conjecture. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this about the guy in Chicago. But now we have the second part of it. I'm not going to say it then, forget it. Chicago's a lot of people. Mayor Lori Lightfoot's from Chicago. Did you know that? The head of the Detroit Archbishop Alan Vigeron, right? He's also vice president of the USCCB. Made it clear that he's not happy with Father Altman speaking at the Call to Holiness Conference June 15th. Go back to the canon we just cited. Speaking on behalf of Archbishop Vigeron, Auxiliary Bishop Cepeda, Father Altman has been divisive. There's that word again. I added that. In his own diocese, and I'm very concerned he'll bring that here. Interesting deployment of words here. Very consistent use of the word divisive. Now, if I may, this archdiocese is known, and there's no other way to put this, for its vindictiveness. See, Father Perrone, Monsignor Bugarin was employed as an off-duty law enforcement and an off-duty law enforcement officer to smear Father Perrone with false allegations. From what I understand, they have another set coming.
Yep.
Yeah, there was a huge wave of support for Father Altman, and because a bunch of people found this guy, and they just said, this guy. Now, the good news, there have been donations over $600,000 for his canonical legal defense funds. People opened up their wallets to make sure that this guy was covered. He has amassed a huge following. This is a backlash. Father Heilman wrote from U.S. Grace Force. I thought it's kind of a long thing, Hitch. You want me to just kind of skim over it? But he wrote, I thought was really kind of a touching point about Father Altman. He said, much like the rest of Jesus, 10 of the 12 apostles took off running in silent self-protection. At a critical point when Jesus could have used the support of his apostles, they fled. Just one remained with him at the cross, John the Beloved. We need more John the Beloveds, more Mother Angelicas, more Father Altmans. I thought that was really actually very on point and beautiful. And he urged, and Father Heilman urged the faithful to in action by exhorting, the time is now for all of us, most especially priests and bishops, to refuse to allow Satan and his minions to seize control.
Yep.
And I thought that was beautiful. Now, other bishops that simply must be added to this hall of shame here. This list is not conclusive, just recent. Archbishop David Malloy in Rockford Diocese, Father James Parker, Holy Cross Parish, Batavia.
Right.
Father Parker, whose only violations appear to be belief in Catholicism, just like Father Altman. His church is growing. The money that they wanted to redo the church with, actually to make it more traditional and have a Eucharistic adoration chapel. Bishop Malloy summoned him for fraternal correction, presumably as well. But this is interesting.
Fraternal correction for what exactly?
Yes, this is like number one. And so Father Parker, and I have to hand it to him, showed up with a canon lawyer.
Yep.
Said, sure, correct away.
Just a word to any priests who are watching. If you get called to show up with your bishop, always bring a canon lawyer. If your bishop calls you on the phone and says, I want you to do X or I want you to stop doing Y, always demand that he send it to you in writing. Yes. Because the communication in writing is official, whereas things communicated verbally are unofficial, according to canon law. So you priests who are watching, please make sure that you always bring a canon lawyer if you get called before your bishop, and that you always demand whatever he wants you to do, whatever commands he sends you, that he always puts it in writing.
Great point. And so the bishop absolutely refused the discussion, and long story short, proclaimed he wouldn't talk to him now, wants him out of the diocese, cannot stay in any rectory within his diocese. Basically, Father Parker beat it. And I don't care how you're going to eat or sleep, and good luck. Now, 20 priests in Bishop Malloy's diocese were sent to the re-education camp farm, otherwise known as the farm. I believe that's St. Luke's. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So there were now 20 in the diocese. And now here's the other part. Shockingly, there just, happens to be a money issue with this case. Holy Cross Parish raised $4 million with such plans, as I said earlier, chapel for Eucharistic adoration. According to sources, this is collecting between 3 to 4% since the campaign began in 2018, which, by the way, with or without verification of sources, that sounds exactly about right, because this money is put in a trust. The trust is then handed over to a what they call a member firm of the New York Stock Exchange or a FINRA approved dealer, and without putting any adverse risk on, you can count on about 3 or 4%. Now, what does that mean? Well, that's a lot of money. That's like $300,000 or $400,000.
Yep.
And so now, what happened then? And there's no other way to say this. The Cardinal, head of the U.S. CCB, came down and instructed them specifically to hang on to those funds and don't do anything with them, including the interest. And then, basically kind of threw his weight around. So there you go. That is the Father Altman update, and as well as the Hall of Shame for other ones who have. I really feel for these guys. I mean, can you imagine how lonely this is? I mean, that's why it was so incredible that people really just came out of the woodwork, and I hope they do it for Father Parker. These guys are just trying to defend Christ. That's it.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
They're real soldiers, and I got to hand it to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I just keep looking at the situation within the church, and the fact of the matter is that the evil prelates, the evil priests, they're being given free reign. Yes. Going back to what Archbishop Vigneron said about, well, I'm concerned about how Father Altman is causing division in the archdiocese. Well, okay, Your Excellency. Are you also concerned about the kind of division that the AUSCP is sowing?
How about
Are
that
you
one?
concerned about the division that an organization called the Elephants in the Living Room in the Archdiocese of Detroit, which is a group of homosexual priests, are you concerned about the division that they're sowing? Or how about the division that's been sown by Monsignor Bugarin? Clearly, he's divisive in his approach to the persecution of Father Perron and the way that he has been basically creating a web of lies surrounding him to malign his good name. That's not divisive, Your Excellency.
No.
You know, they talk about divisiveness, but then they only apply it to one set of people. And those are the ones who are trying to defend orthodoxy and defend the truths of the church. Everyone else, the James Martins of the world, the
Right.
AUSCP, Call to Action and Future Church and Voice of the Faithful, all these groups, oh no, they get accolades. They get promotions. They get big speaking deals in cathedrals. And no one says a word about them.
Right.
I'm waiting. The only bishop that I know of that's actually spoken out against Father James Martin S.J. is Bishop Strickland.
Right, in Texas.
And he is getting hammered behind the scenes because he actually says what needs to be said.
Right.
I can only imagine the kind of pressure that he's under from his local archbishop and some of the other bishops. And gosh, the Cardinal Supiches who would come down and say, I would hate for something to happen to your diocese.
It would be a terrible thing. Yeah, because
it'd be a terrible thing.
Oh, that's awful.
So I find it fascinating that the Pope came out and he actually outright condemned the mafia.
Yes.
Which is ironic because the church is literally being run by mobsters. That's how they treat their priests.
Right. Absolutely right. Shut up and obey, or
yeah,
you might be out on the street.
Right. Not well, and
some get hurt.
Yeah, exactly. That's a nice car you have. I would hate for tires to suddenly pop for no reason.
I feel like a new guy. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think that's
so. Anyway, I think that's all we have time for this week.
Can I make a closing observation?
Yeah, go right ahead.
15 seconds. Under the title of "The Left Has No Limit to Its Hubris and Gall." First, we had Cuomo's book, American Crisis Leadership Lessons from COVID-19. That was one. Now we have Fauci's new book, Expect the Unexpected. I just thought I don't know if you caught that hitch. You were away for a couple of days. So these two guys should be in handcuffs and orange jumpsuits. I'm done.
Yeah. Expect the unexpected.
Yeah.
In other words, what do you have up your other sleeve?
I can't. Oh gosh. I just don't even. I give up.
Yeah. So there we are. Have a happy week. I'm glad to bring you the good news. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play?
How was the play, Mrs. Lincoln?
Yeah. So such is the world that we live in. But as we always try to end on a positive note, let's just try and remember that the world itself is wicked. It always was. It always will be. The problem is that since the Second Vatican Council, prelates in the church have been trying to baptize the world and make it into something good, something for us to embrace and something for us to abide in, which we never should have done. The church is not, or the world is not our home. The church is our true home. And the church here, the church militant, is the ark by which we are transported to happy and eternal ports. That's the whole purpose of this life. That's the whole reason why we are alive. So don't let the problems in the church and the problems in the world get you down. It's important to know about them. It's important to study them and to understand what's happening so that we don't lose our faith when we actually finally get persecuted in person. There are times when I fully expect the FBI to come crashing down on my house because I said something against homosexuality, or I said something about transgenders being trying to foist their sexual perversions on the rest of the world. That they're living in a sexual fantasy and that it's make-believe and they're trying to get me to play along. You know, I say these things and I mean them. And because I'm speaking truth and the world hates the truth, well, I expect at some point that the world is going to retaliate. Right now, I'm small potatoes. I'm pretty small potatoes compared to some of the other voices out there. There are much bigger fish to fry than Michael Hitchborn, thank God. But there may come a time when they've had enough of my mouth. And when that time comes, well, praise be to God, because the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Don't worry about what tomorrow is going to bring. As our Lord said, the evils of today sufficeth. So let the evils of the world today suffice for what we have to go up against. Don't worry about tomorrow's evils. Just understand where you stand, understand where the world situation is, and just know the truth is there. It is a path to be followed, and there's nothing that can bar the way except you. So with that, let's go ahead and close with our prayer.
You got it.
In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum. Benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus.
Sancta Maria Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostri. Amen.
Our Lady of Victory.
Pray for us.
In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. All right, everybody. I hope you have a great weekend and a good next week, and we will catch you all next time and bring you up to date into what else is going on in the world. Until then, God bless.
See you next week, guys. Bye-bye.